just because you hired Becky in the front office doesn't mean Becky's going to be there forever.
Yeah,
you piss Becky off, and Becky might take all your shit down, and that's not cool.
Yeah.
But it happened. Hey, what's up? It's Torie Mathis, your host, and I'm here with the one and only Sean Mathis, founder of Miles Through Time Automotive Museum.
What's going on?
So if you didn't know, we run a website called Automotive Museum Guide, and we actually started that after we started Miles Through Time.
Yeah, it was one of those things that we both like to do research, and I did a ton of research trying to figure out how to start this car museum thing, because again, I had no idea what I was doing. So, a little bit of Google search and searching through Facebook were the two places that I really tried to find other car museums to try to figure out what that is that they're doing, so that I could figure out what it is that I need to do. And we wound up, I wound up researching so much stuff that I wound up compiling a lot of data on all these different museums. And so I turned to Torie, I'm like, there's all these museums, what can we do with this? And the skills Torie has, we wound up creating this guide. It's automotivemuseumguide.com that lists every single automotive museum in North America. And over the years now that it's been, we've keep tweaking it. So now you can search it by map or region, and by state, by specific name, and now by genre of automotive museum. And it's one of those things that it takes a lot of work to do. But because we did a lot of legwork initially and put it together, it's all there. But then it's a continual thing that we have to continually find the most recent information on these museums, because they change so frequently. It's not like it was we do it all one time and then it's gone and it's there. It's something that constantly has to be checked and updated. And just recently, I found out that there was a museum, and sending out emails and keeping everybody informed on what I'm doing. I found one that looked like it was closed, and I go to the website. I go from the page that we had on Automotive Museum Guide that I originally collected 2 years earlier, or a year earlier, whatever it was, and I go to their website to see what's going on now, to make sure everything's up to date before I send it out. And I see that it says that they were closed. And the whole website itself looks super dated. And I scroll down to the bottom where a lot of websites will have a date on there. And it said 2013, which is pretty old. So now I've got it where the website looks dated. It says it's dated. And it's got information on there that says that the place is closed. It did say temporarily closed. And we got all this COVID stuff going on. So, it's safe to assume that something could have definitely happened that closed the museum. So I go from there and I go to their Facebook page. Their Facebook page is very underutilized. And the last post that they had on there was from March 15th of 2020. So right about that time when a whole lot of places were shutting down. And it said it was temporarily closing on there. Mind you, this is the very last post this museum had ever shared. And there's comments on it. And the comments are that actually the museum is now closed permanently. And now, again, this is not unheard of. This is something that a museum, or any business really, initially would have closed and then made it, nothing really changed, and they couldn't sustain being closed, and opening wasn't an option, so they wound up closing completely. And so looking at this, I see that the place is closed. To me, it could have been somebody representing the museum. It could have been somebody that went there and found out. Whatever it is, they said on there that the museum is now permanently closed. And everywhere else, it looks like it's closed, and there's no easy way to get a hold of this museum to verify any information. So I assume that it is a closed museum. Turns out it was not. I wound up sending out an email to the list for Automotive Museum Guide for everybody that wants to find out, what automotive museums are out there that they can discover. And I let them know that this particular one was no longer a place that they could visit. And I instantly got a whole lot of, well, that sucks. That's a bummer. And then I wound up getting one that was like, they're not closed. I'm like, that's strange. And it wasn't coming from the museum. It was just some random person. So now I'm like, I got to try to dive into this a little bit further to see, are they open or are they closed? And a few minutes later, I got another email. Again, doesn't say it's from the museum. It says it's just a person. But again, that person almost looked like they were representing the museum, but it didn't come from the museum's email address or anything like that specifically said that they're the museum. So now I've got conflicting information. So do I overturn, what I said as far as what is closed, or is it open? And as far as I can see, it still says it's closed. And so I wound up getting a hold of somebody by the name of Amy, and it matched up with the last email that I received, just first names, and I wound up emailing her back. I'm like, hey, are you actually Amy from this museum? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, what's the deal? And she tells me, not only are they not permanently closed, but they're doing remodeling updates, and they plan to reopen early of 2022. But they did lay off everybody. So the curator, every single person that was involved in the museum, they all got laid off. And apparently some of them weren't too happy about it. And it turns out it was disgruntled employees that led everybody believe that the place was not going to open again. And that's going to happen. But in this particular case, the museum didn't fix it. They didn't set the record straight or say anything. So for a year and a half, anybody that would go there, it looks like the museum's done. It's over. You still can't go and visit it. And it goes to show how important it is to keep this stuff up to date. Just super simple stuff. They obviously set up a Facebook page and did it all with their set up with their information and utilized it up until that point. But then they kind of just dropped it, and it goes to show though that even though the museum's not open to where you can visit, it's still pretty important to kind of stay on top of things and still utilize that kind of stuff, or update the website and especially since something is actually going on. People can't visit, but there's stuff that people should know. They're going through remodeling updates. Let people know that kind of stuff. They're going to open. Let them know that kind of stuff. There's nothing on that dated website from 8 years ago, from the last time it's been updated, that captures any kind of email for people. There's no way for them to have gotten a hold of anybody to let them know what's going on. And the thing is a lot of people are familiar with this museum. The response I got back of letting people know that it was closed was crazy, because I didn't think it was that popular of a museum. It's in an area that is heavily populated with automotive museums, so there's a big auto industry up there. So apparently that's made it easy. And there's cool stuff on there, obviously, but they're not letting anybody know, and it's a major bummer, because there's who knows what they're missing out from not letting people know. There could be people that would be willing to help them with some of the repairs and updates, because it's a nonprofit museum. You keep people engaged and excited, let them know when they can come and participate in visiting the museum again. Just touch base, because obviously somebody is still there. This Amy is still there doing something in some sort of capacity.
Since you reached out to them and said, are you still open? Have they updated the Facebook page, a post reopening, or have they done anything? Last
I heard, the person that I talked to does not have access, apparently, to any of their social media, which is just their Facebook page.
What about their Google listing?
Their Google listing isn't updated. The website, she did mention that they are working. Apparently, they're going to have to build a whole new website, because she didn't say update. She said new. And it's old. It's not a responsive website. It's completely dated. So they need all this kind of stuff, but they missed a whole lot of opportunity.
I would say in the beginning of doing website design, when I started my marketing agency, I would say 50% or more of the business that I got was just rescuing websites that people couldn't get back into. And I'm a master of recreating stuff. Like I can recreate anything. So I would, recreate what they had, and then we would make the adjustments to it to make it newer and more modern and more updated. And then we would have to figure out, how to do that swap out. But it is such a common story that is just day in and day out of people that cannot get into their website, and so they can't update it, and then don't have any access to any of their social media, whether it be their Google page or their Facebook page. And that's a huge problem. And it's such an easy fix. Because we do marketing for a lot of clients, we're on a whole bunch of people's Facebook page as an admin and an admin inside of their Google account. So we have access as an admin to their business Google account. And so I'm not sure if people don't understand that you can do that. And obviously, you don't want to give everybody access, just in case, because you do end up with some disgruntled employees and stuff, but you definitely need to make sure multiple people,
more than one,
have access. And even if that means like your own email, like, okay, Sean at Miles Through Time and Sean at Lake Shark Media and your Gmail, like, let's make sure all three of these have access to the account. Like, however you need to do that so that you don't end up losing, because that's opportunity, that is just wasted materials, and then the fact that you're not putting forth that professional appearance to people that they don't even know what's going on with the business. It's a really big bummer that I just see over and over again. And I know this COVID thing has just got all kinds of people all messed up, but I'm sure this is happening a lot more than we know.
Yeah, I mean, with all this code stuff, it definitely is going to be a lot more prevalent that this kind of thing happens, which makes it that much more important to ensure there are backup emails to be able to get into your various accounts. Because I can almost guarantee you this museum's going to have to start their Facebook page over again. It's not like they're not losing 100,000 followers or anything, but it's still, you don't want to have to start over again.
Well, what I think is almost worse than starting over is that then you end up with a duplicate.
Yeah, because you can't get rid of it.
You can't, there's...
Yeah, there's more to it than just, I can't do it. And same with websites. We've had a client that they had their website essentially taken hostage from them. And there's nothing we could do because they technically didn't own that domain. And
so the person that had it, they actually went and bought the domain for multiple years.
They kept renewing it.
So that they couldn't use it. Yeah.
And the thing is there's just garbage on it. It's not like they were using it for what they needed it for. They just didn't want to give it back, which is shitty in its own sense. But the real bummer here is that you can't do anything about that other than creating a completely new website on a completely new domain, and then all you can do is bury the other one.
Yeah, I hope you bump the other one out. And the same thing with the Facebook page. If people search for that business, you don't really know which page is going to come up. And there's not really a lot of ways to, if you contact Facebook, I have my own rep at Facebook, and even they, there's nothing you can do about that if you get completely locked out of an account. You done.
Yeah, that's brutal. And the thing is if especially in a museum or a business like that where people might be going in there and taking pictures and sharing them on social media and tagging the museum, they might think they're tagging the right one, but the way it works on your phone, you don't really know. I mean, if they're just gonna pick the one that pops up, and a lot of times, I don't think Facebook is that smart to be well, this one is inactive for 2 years. This one's new. It's just going to populate whatever it is. So chances are it has a opportunity to not be to the right page. In that case, you might not see it, and then anybody else clicks it. It's taking them to an outdated page, which then may not have the correct website address on it. And I mean, it's a whole vicious cycle. But this is the world that we live in, so it's important to keep all this kind of stuff straightened out.
Yeah, and definitely having somebody else have access to it, or more than just one person. Don't just because you hired Becky in the front office doesn't mean Becky's going to be there forever.
Yeah,
you piss Becky off, and Becky might take all your shit down, and that's not cool. But it happens.
And it easily happens because the owner of the business is giving that person their login instead of creating one for that person. So now you've just given them your login, and if they change their email, they can make it so that you will never get that again if they don't want you to.
Well, and that's the nice thing about how a lot of these different profiles online are set up, is that it's set up so you don't have to give your login. You actually just give another email access. So when I go into a client's Google, it's actually through my Google account, and I just have access to their account. I don't log in as them. They have their own login, and then we each have our own login. So Sean can access it, I can access it without denying any access to anybody else. And so that's, you're able to do that on Google, you're able to do that on Facebook, on pretty much any of these online profile type places.
On your website?
Yeah, on your website too. You can have multiple logins. It's not just like one master admin, one key to the castle that if you lose or someone steals, you're never getting in the castle again.
Which then you can see who's doing what as well. So if you've got an employee and there's questionable things getting posted or something, you're going to easily be able to tell who did that and take care of it. Where if they have your login, it looks like you did it, and especially if multiple people have it, you're kind of stuck with that. So I mean, you need it on your website, your Google business page, and your social media profiles. All need to have your own login, and then have somebody else have their login as well, whether it's your number two, various employees that like to be on social media or whatever, however it can benefit your business, and have a backup email in case something happens to your email. You're still able to log in and get everything that you need to.
I think you brought up a really good other point too with this, is that by leaving the communication open with your customers, with your patrons, even if you're closed for a while or something happens, especially with all this COVID stuff, your hours change, it's so easy just to let people know. And what we've found is that if you let people know what's going on, people want to help. People want to reach out. Obviously, people wanted to help this museum because people were really quick to, contact Sean and say, no, like they're not closed. And so if they were just a little bit better with their communication on these things, and Google makes it really easy to do like temporary announcements and things like that, just to let people know like what's going on. And that way they'll be ready to support you again. Or if you do need help right now, that people will reach out.
Right.
It's kind of a community, especially in the automotive museum world. It is kind of a community, and everybody seems to be looking out for each other. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of history. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of really cool things there that it's a major hit when one of these places close. And it happens, unfortunately, often. COVID or no COVID, it happens.
The main plan when we started this was to do a printed version, and it took a long time. We had somebody help us out, like getting all of the information so that we had all the phone numbers and the addresses, and not just the name of them, but like their website, like all the information for every single museum. And like we're still like last week you still found like 2 more, like more are just like coming in. But that was like the whole point, is that there wasn't a way to be able to find them really easily. So the plan was to print out, because I love print. I love doing magazines. I love that kind of like periodical feel. But it changes so often that how do you print something like that when, in a year, there's that kind of give and take for things going and museums coming. And
I got an email yesterday letting me know that another museum, it did close. And the whole thing is getting auctioned off in 2 weeks.
So probably better that, at least for now, we keep it online. And still now it's hard to keep up with because things change so often.
Mm-hmm.
But keeping your stuff updated really helps your business recover from any of these kind of things, and helps your community, stand behind you and support you.
Don't leave it up to assumptions. Like, let them know what they need to know. Otherwise, they're going to start assuming things. And if those things are incorrect or detrimental to your business, that's a bad thing. So let them know what you want them to know, and keep them engaged and excited for whatever's to come.
Yeah, because if you leave a comment or whatever the last review was or anything like that, especially if it's on a negative note, you don't want that to be the last taste in someone's mouth about your business.
No.
So easy stuff to fix. We have new shows every Tuesday and Thursday, and we would think it'd be great if you would come and join us, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.
Later.